like what's happened and what's come out and what's moving forward with it. I had a meeting today with like 10 photographers locally in Boston. We had a talk about sort of the economy and pricing and our strategy for pricing for the year coming up. And I mentioned our salon tonight. And it was interesting who was paying attention to AI and how it's going to shift and change their workflow and who weren't. And there's already some tools that are being released that are helping photographers. There's one that's helping photographers edit. That's a plugin right into Lightroom, I think, that I found out about today. That's very exciting. It'll watch how you edit. And then as time goes by, it'll do your editing and culling for you. And
I've always wanted that.
Wow. Yeah, two of the women in the group were using it, and the group ended like 2 hours before our meeting, so I haven't had a chance to play with it. It's called Imagen, IMAGEN.ai. So it's neat to think about how AI tools are going to impact our practice, and that I thought about that a lot this week in all kinds of contexts and capacities. It was a good week.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. Yeah. I can't seem to stop starting projects or companies. I think I've got 4 or 5 of them going now, and I'm still CEO of my existing company, so I'm not really starting new companies, but I guess where my head is right now is every time someone says, "Hey, do you want to do something?" my answer is yes, because I want to figure this stuff out. And
I started playing with surface design this week and making patterns, and how quickly I could do that in Midjourney as a way to teach myself prompts and prompt crafting. There's exciting things happening. I want to hear what other people in the group have been working on too, and if they have projects and things they've been working on. I know our Discord channel is very lively and people have been posting all kinds of interesting things. So I would encourage everybody to join and be there and comment and share work.
Great. So let's do it. Let's pop around and do introductions. So we'll start with Denver. We started with remote first last time. One little rule thing that we're going to put in place, because this is a hybrid meeting, it's really easy to sort of talk over one another. So Ken, who's one of our volunteers, is going to monitor raising your hand. If you want to say something online, if you're on the Goog, just raise your hand and then we'll call on you, and that will hopefully get some other voices in there as well. But we'll go around the room here in Denver. So I guess, introduce yourself, what you do, and then if you're working on anything or what you want to be working on, sort of where you are with AI. I have to do something here, so I've got to hold, please.
All right, then I got to turn this up. It's going to be so good. Seriously. You just wait. I need AI. Wait, how do I change what it looks like? Well, whatever. All right. So just give yourself a quick intro.
Okay. Hi. I'm Alan. I'm a software developer. I guess my interests in AI, I'm a musician, and I'm also interested in the intersection of AI and how we can teach, and specifically how I'm using it to learn for my job.
Hi, I'm Lance, student just getting into ChatGPT, Stable Diffusion, Midjourney, trying to find kind of a balance and how to mix all of those into hopefully make a movie someday. And just here to learn, see where everyone else is at.
Hi, I'm Cole. I'm enrolled in graphic design school, and I'm just here to kind of learn a little bit more about where the future of graphic design is with AI and everything going on with that.
Awesome.
Hi, I'm Bruce. I've worked with Kyle for the last 10 or 12 years since Storyvine started, and my care is using AI to communicate leadership, coaching, leadership in terms of humanity, marketing, using it as a way to basically communicate and solve what's coming up in the world with the planet, with our care, with our humanity.
Hi, I'm Karen. I'm a computer science student. I use ChatGPT to help me write code, and I'm just looking forward to being more involved in the development of AI.
Cool. All right, can turn that back on.
Again. This goes to me.
I think Kyle, you're muted.
Okay. How about now?
Okay. Oh,
Bitch. I don't know what's going on. Oh, I know it's fine. Okay, can you hear me now?
We can hear you.
Yeah.
Yes.
No echo.
Okay, all right, the meeting's over, everyone. Have fun. Good night. All right, so those out in the Google land, especially if you're new. Oh, I see Scott Major. Let's pick on Scott Major. So those out in the Google land, introduce yourself and do the same thing. I'd love to know who's here. Scott, want to go first?
Sure. Hey, everyone. Thanks for having me. Scott Major. I was actually one of Kyle's first creative and design hires in one of the many companies he's had, agency.com, way back in the mid-90s. But I'm currently the chief marketing officer of Deloitte Consulting. And, I'm here, to learn, and mostly interested in, how these tools are going to, I guess two parts, how these tools are going to impact creative and marketing professionals, sort of thinking about them as superpowers, right? People that use them, how are we going to use these superpowers to communicate, tell stories, and create experiences in better, different, more impactful ways. And in a much broader sense, I'm also here because, from a Deloitte Consulting perspective, we're using these tools in all aspects of how we do work for our clients. So, it's a really fundamental shift that we're going to see in all of business and society, and how these tools are going to be used. So on that learning journey, I guess with all of you, and I keep getting pinged by reporters and things asking me my opinion on this stuff. So I need to.
Yeah, they're going to start bugging you.
As much as we're doing, we all need to learn also.
Great. Who else?
I can go.
Looks like Ron Reed has his hand up.
Yep.
Yep, I won't for sure whenever you started the hand raising thing, but if it's on this or not. But I'm EB Ron from Abyss Labs, AI artist, image manipulator, and storyteller. Starting to use AI to actually do stories as well with my art pieces. Here to learn, here to kind of be in the grassroots of a group that hopefully we all evolve and learn to make money and have successful lives off of this.
Great. Love it.
Peter Kaminsky has his hand up.
Yeah, thanks. I was thinking the remote people, maybe we all want to raise our hand. I think that would cue us pretty well. I know I've known Kyle for a long time through kind of a tech friends network, and I'm a software technologist, internet technologist from the early days of the internet, and so one of my things with AI is just I like being way in front of new stuff. So this is a new thing. I also really love creative stuff like art and music, visual stuff and music stuff, and even writing stuff. So the new AIs feel like superpowers to me, and I love using superpower stuff. I mostly play around with Stable Diffusion because I've got it running on my Mac, so it's easy and fun. I'm up to about 6,000 images I just counted, which doesn't seem like a lot, but the thing that I'm really waiting for is for AI marketplaces. There's a whole bunch of new things that you need to do to make AI art or AI writing, and it's kind of the same stuff. You know, you need editing, or you need prompt craft, or you need whatever, but there's more of it and more people involved. And I feel like there's we will be able to have marketplaces for those. And you know, the observation I had as soon as I saw Dolly was, it's like, okay, so now we can have like 10,000 or 10,000 or 100,000 times more images kind of flowing through society, like orders of magnitude more, right? And so what does that mean for everybody's attention span, and what does that mean for marketing images, and what does that mean for entertainment and all of that kind of stuff? And I want to see that happen, and so that's what I'm super excited about. The other thing I'm doing that I really love is I'm doing really short prompts for Stable Diffusion now that aren't descriptive, and it generates really cool stuff. So.
Oh, cool. Awesome.
I'm with you, Peter. Awesome. Thank you.
Great.
Awesome. Nicole?
There are a couple of Nicoles, but I'll go.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Nicole, I don't want to butcher anybody's name, but Lazaro, I think that's how it's
Lazaro,
said.
yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
That's it. As I'm chewing, my apologies for the crunching. But yeah, so Nicole Lazaro from Zeo Design. Among other things, I designed the first iPhone game. So like Peter was saying, like to be out front. 30-year game industry veterans. I worked on things like The Sims and Star Wars and Myst. I was the first person to measure emotion on people's faces while they played games as well. And my model is used by millions of developers around the world, baked into the AI for The Sims, inspired IBM Watson's emotion analytics, and led to this thing we call gamification. And I'm jumping in with Stable Diffusion, Midas, and Midjourney, a couple other ones.
What's Midas, Nicole?
I'm using Midas. It's on Hugging Face as well, and it creates some really great depth maps out of 2D images.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, I can put I can put a link in the chat when I'm done.
Yeah,
please. Thank you.
Do that.
Yeah. So essentially, what I'm doing is I've got a game, Follow the White Rabbit, which you see here, and it's a mystery adventure that happens around the world. And what I'm doing is I'm creating an AR detective mystery game, fast-paced for mobile XR, and using Midjourney to generate a lot of the images, and then taking Midas to make some depth to it, and creating some really fun game mechanics using AI. I'm using ChatGPT just for brainstorming right now. It's not enough to actually be to really do serious writing for a game. But it is generating me a list of, 10 weapons used in a mystery game. Okay, that was terrible. Generate unusual ones. That was awful. Make them unusual. Make them horrifying. Make them snarky. Snarky is actually really great.
Oh, that's great. Awesome.
So,
welcome. I'm really excited you're here.
Oh, cool.
Oh yeah,
Thanks,
yeah.
Nicole.
You're welcome.
William? Bill?
Yep. I think I'm next. Yeah. My name's Bill. I have a video production company called WF Cinematics, and I do everything from local web videos, commercials, and I also work on films. And the AI stuff I just kind of stumbled across for a fun hobby. And as with anything, after a little tiny bit, I start to wonder, okay, how can I use this seriously? And I've only used Midjourney, and I was just playing around, and I'm a huge nerd, and I wanted to just make some stuff based on old 80s cartoons, and I made a Thundercats, live action Thundercats set of renders, and it was like overnight getting thousands of views. I'm like, whoa, what is going on here? I had people messaging me, asking me to make more, so I started making a little hub for all of my nerdy creations, and I started offering some services as well for concept pitches, things like that, which I'll get into more later. But yeah, I just kind of stumbled into it, and now I'm in love with it.
Yeah, and Bill will be presenting his project tonight, so we will get to see his magical creations. And they really are. And I reached out to you, Bill, just because they showed up on my Facebook. And one of the things I'm fascinated about right now is what rises above the noise, right? If everyone can make all these amazing images, why does something rise above the noise? And yours absolutely did for me. So I'm really excited to hear you talk about how you got there and what you do. So anyway, it's exciting.
Awesome. Thanks,
All right,
Bill.
thanks.
John Robertson, you're up.
Hey guys, so briefly, been on a computer since I was 4 years old. I'm about 42 now, and I am the maintenance man where Kyle is sitting right now. So
Excellent.
I'm not
And a great guy.
art, but I am a blue collar type of lens to this at times. Just kind of sitting back. Thanks for everybody. And enjoy the show.
Thanks, John. Drea, you're up.
Hey, my name's Drea Knifkin. I'm just sort of getting out of a career of being a professional writer and trying my hand at entrepreneurship. I'd like to build something that is conversational mental health tech, sort of between a simulation and a game. So I'm working on product development for that, and I want to sort of know how to. I'm experimenting with integrating tools into my daily workflow, see what works, what doesn't, and also here to meet everybody and sort of build community around this.
Great. Welcome.
Welcome.
Awesome.
see you.
Welcome. Jones Crawl, you're up next.
Hey everyone, thanks for having me. Jones Crow, I'm the US head of creative for brand and advertising at Deloitte Digital. And I'm here because Cut Major really sent an email today saying how amazing this group of people would be. And then I would be here. So here I am. I am an amateur musician, started my career as an art director and then became a copywriter. So I can't even begin to think, well, I don't even know where to start to say how, what interests me about AI and everything that I can get from you guys here. So it's a real pleasure being here. Thank you so much.
Great to have you. Thank you.
Thank you. Sabita Homami? I hope I
Yes.
said that right. You're up.
Yeah, close enough. My name is Sepide, and I just moved to Denver 8 days ago. So I'm so excited to be here, make friends, and meet everyone virtually and in person, hopefully in the near future. I'm a former software engineer, used to work at PlayStation, slowly walked away from programming, and now I'm more into leadership for application development. And focusing more on my music, which is my passion, and I would like to know how I can combine all these together. So that's why I'm here, very curious to know, to learn, and see how I can create and what I can do.
Awesome.
Nice to meet you all.
Awesome. Nice meeting you. Janice
Kaye.
Kayet.
That's fine.
I'm sorry.
It's all right. Janice Kaye. I'm the co-founder and chief catalyst at Corentus. We help leadership teams be more effective in working better together. So I'm here to learn. Kyle and I go way back to the really early 90s where he was with agency.com and Whack. And I was creating one of the first city sites called Total New York. So Kyle and I are working on a number of different projects together and trying to utilize these tools for the betterment of all.
The betterment of society. And in fact, the project that I'm working on with Janice, I also pulled in FPO Kenny, who's part of the salon, and he and I are using AI to try to do work really well and really quickly for Janice. So it's a really fun experiment.
The Whack. I forgot about the Whack. That's a great call out. The World Wide Web Artists Consortium.
That's right.
Yeah, it's way back. So in '94 when the web came out, it was similar to this where there was lots of excitement, but nobody knew anything. So I put together a similar group back then to say, does anybody know anything about this? And the answer was no. So if you're feeling clueless right now, you're in the perfect place.
Amen.
All right, we got Megan Jolson up next.
Frozen, yeah. So hi everyone, I'm Megan. So I actually just recently joined Janice at Currentus in a marketing capacity. Yes, very exciting. So today I'm basically just here to, learn more about AI and how it might be able to positively impact society, but I'm also particularly interested in how that might impact marketing in particular. So I'm just here, very curious, very excited to learn from all of you guys. And I look forward to meeting you guys.
Great. Thank you. Cliff Rosen, you're next.
Okay, hey everyone, I'm Cliff Rosen, calling in from New York City. Yes, I'm a bit of a veteran. I'm one of the old guys on this call. I don't know how that happened so fast. About, 27 years ago in 1995, co-founded internet startup. It was one of the first social networking sites called 6 Degrees. Had a good old time with that. Did a few more software runs. Brief run with an AI company in 2000. We were trying to create AGI at the time. I wasn't on the R&D team. I was on the productization team, trying to provide a wrapper around the core tech and productize it. The news is we did not create AGI then, and continued to watch, to look at the horizon and watch AI kind of inch along towards this promised land. And about a month ago, the promised land showed up. So just before that, I was trying to develop some sites as part of an umbrella company that Knowledge Sites LLC to fill knowledge gaps on the internet, because while there are a tremendous number of terrific resources, it seemed like 5 to 10% of the time that I set out on a learning curve, I kind of hit a wall. And I thought there were some tools and techniques for knowledge creation and sharing that was not represented in the marketplace. And I knew that AI someday would solve that. And it looks like AI now has solved that with the large language model. So I'm kind of shifting focus away from Knowledge Sites LLC, and I want to try to figure out how I can get back into AI, not as a researcher, but again, either providing a layer around the core tech or maybe as an enabler with some type of methodology for helping companies to get their proprietary data integrated with large language models can do. Because taking a foundational model and getting your company data to be integrated with it is not a simple proposition, but there are techniques now, like data augmented generation is one of them that I'm looking at. And I think a lot of companies are going to be looking at solutions like that, and I wonder if I can help them along with the playbook. Awesome. So I'm here to, sorry?
I said welcome.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, happy to be here, and nice to meet you all.
Great.
So we need a club for people who worked in technology before its time and worked for some company that crashed and burned trying to do something too soon, and then 20 years later got a second chance when its time finally arrived.
Exactly. That's great.
And last but not least, we have Lawrence. Lawrence.
Yeah, hey everyone, Lorenz Gaga. Nice to meet you. Pleasure to be here. Actually work with James Kroll and Scott. Hey guys. On the Deloitte digital side, I'm a senior manager, group creative director, copywriter by trade. So I'm sort of what you'd consider your classic ad person creative, writing copy for about 20 years for brands, both big and small in every sector, primarily tech, a lot, and automotive. I've been working a lot with ChatGPT to just kind of understand how can it augment my own sort of ability and allow me to sort of dig shallow holes very quickly. But I'm particularly interested in how it can sort of affect sort of your more sort of junior staff, and how do you augment them quickly, and would it allow to sort of turbocharge somebody sort of out the gate? So I'm particularly interested in how can you just sort of unlock the sort of other level within training people, because it sort of feels like when you have all the world's experience sort of at your hands, how could that affect somebody who's got just sort of all the curiosity in the world? Putting those two together, I think could be just sort of wild.
I like the way you said that. Thanks. Really good.
Great.
Pleasure.
Well, nice to meet everyone. Welcome. Good to see you. See you made it in person. Good to see you.
like we have one more hand up here.
Okay, great.
Lisa
Oh, great.
Bender.
Hey, Lisa.
Hi there. Nice to meet everybody. I'm a UX designer and animator, and I actually used the internet before it was the internet. I used to communicate with people in the early 90s on electronic bulletin boards. So we've come a long way, baby.
Oh yeah, yeah. I was.
Yeah,
Where are
artificial
you?
intelligence.
Are you
I'm
in New
just
York?
like, no, I'm in Denver.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, very excited to be here. Very excited to learn about whatever, I can do with the AI and how I can enhance design and UX with it.
That's awesome.
Welcome.
That's awesome.
Thank
Great.
you.
Good. So let's shift gears a bit. We're trying to figure out the news section. So I think the first meeting we had 5 stories up. Last meeting we had 3 stories up. Today we're just going to pick one story that we think is something worth talking about. There were 5 or 6 stories this week that are worth talking about. One of the reasons that we have a Discord community is that there's so much going on. So if you haven't joined the Discord community, because a lot of these conversations that we can kind of tee up in this meeting actually continue, and a lot of them are on fire right now in the Discord, particularly Stability getting sued. But I want to turn it over to you, Leah, to walk us. Like we picked one, might not be the right one, but we picked one, and I just want to get people up to speed. So I don't know, can you share your screen maybe, or walk us through what you want to do?
Yeah, I think the idea of the news section is to sort of try to find one story that encapsulates like the bigger, like what are the bigger questions happening right now with AI, and then how can the story be a jumping off point to talk about that. So I don't know if covering 5 stories is the best way to do that. So this week we decided to cover one story. I'm working on sharing my screen, which was in the New York Times. There's a link to it in the Discord. And I would encourage you, like Kyle said, if you haven't been on the Discord, to jump on and take a look at it. So I put together, using ChatGPT, I put together a summary of the article with discussion points and then pulling up one quote. The article is basically about how colleges and universities are wrestling with this really challenging new technology. And somebody, when they introduced themselves, mentioned that they're teaching, I think, and also thinking about this. And so the first discussion point, and I'd love to hear people's thoughts about this, is how can universities teach students to use ChatGPT responsibly and ethically? What is the university's role, and how can ChatGPT use both? Like, how can ChatGPT be used to ethically to help further education? And so I would open that up to people's ideas and thoughts, or even comments in the comment section if people have them.
That's the main focus that I've been taking for ChatGPT. I was a teacher and then went into software development, and the entire goal was to learn what I need to know and then look at the intersection between education and technology. So I was gonna go into machine learning, learn about that, but then this came out and I realized, so in our pedagogy classes and teaching, mentor-mentee was by far the best way to learn. Everything else that we've come up with since then is just to deal with the high pupil to teacher count. So for example, when I was teaching, I had 30 students. I had 50 minutes. That means I had less than 2 minutes a student to figure out where they were weak per day and give them direction. So if you look at mentor-mentee, what makes it so good? The answer is that you can ask your teacher clarifying questions and your teacher can hold context. And so you can really drill down deep into your own questions and answer those things. And so I've been thinking that maybe I need to move away from learning this and instead build some sort of business process that I can go to districts with to, like, this is how you teach Algebra 2. Here's the course. Here's the prompts that the students can give if they want to find the area under a curve or something like that.
So roll it into the curriculum.
Oh, thank you, awesome. And Peter, you have your hand raised.
Yeah, thanks. I this topic really fascinates and kind of frustrates me because it's kind of like well, the answer is obvious to me. I should be the education czar or something like that. It's like instead of you really just need to switch what you're teaching, right? Instead of you want to not be confrontational with ChatGPT. It's like, okay, so we're done having students write papers, and we're on to the phase where students are collaborating with an AI to get stuff done, to learn stuff, right? They should be, so in your class, you should get assigned, here's the, pick a topic you want to explore with ChatGPT, or we're all exploring the biology of gnats or something like that. And go away, work with your AI bot, maybe work with one other person and an AI bot or two, and come back and tell me what you did. Write up a summary of what you learned as you were using ChatGPT. So instead of like, oh my God, they're going to cheat and write a paper that, it's like, why are you assigning, like 20th century homework? That's dumb. Do 21st century work with ChatGPT. Like learn ChatGPT now as fast as you can, right?
Yeah.
So,
well, one of the points of the article I thought was a good one. We're hearing a lot of stories of high schools blocking ChatGPT. The point of the article was that universities are actually trying to figure this out. They're realizing that it's not going away. So
right, how to integrate that. Nicole, you have your hand raised.
You raised my hand virtually.
Yeah. We'll get to you next, Nicole.
Muted?
Are you muted, Nicole? Yeah, it doesn't look like you muted. We can't hear you though.
Oh. No.
I'll go to someone else. Roger.
So I guess my dismissive reaction, not dismissive, but is that, like with most of these things, it's way too early to be talking about any universal answer for universities of of how to deal with the ethics of this. We don't even know what the ethics are. Right? We don't know what the thing is. It's moving so fast. We don't know what the ethical response to that moving target is. And so it just seems really premature to be saying universities should be codifying how to respond to something which in 18 months is going to be unrecognizably different.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay, interesting.
Can folks hear me now?
There we go.
Yes.
There's Nicole. Yeah.
Okay, can I squeeze in?
Yes,
Yes,
please.
Okay,
awesome.
Yes,
So
yes,
yeah,
of course.
really interested. I agree with what Peter says. If we all remember back in the day when they invented writing, Plato and Socrates said that was the end of knowledge. Oh no, no one will be smart because they don't have to remember things. So what knowledge was technology dependent. So new technology disrupts what our concept of knowledge is. However, if you think about using these new tools, I agree that they should be partners in our education and that sort of thing. But how do we get students to express or to output the stuff that's coming in? How do we get that dialogue going? Because I think it's great that I can use a web browser like Google is keyword search. ChatGPT is more vector math or whatever. And I can get stuff back. I can use the tool, but then how is my brain, being changed, right? Because we want those neurons to connect in our own brain. We want the ability to make decisions, hopefully, so we're not having the AI make all our decisions for us. And those new kinds of expression, new kinds of ways of applying or demonstrating knowledge or getting mastery. You have to get on the bike and pedal in order to get a new skill. So how do we do that when these tools are so abundant and thing? But if you've used ChatGPT, you know that it gets into a rut really quickly. The first is like completely my first set of murder weapons or motives, for my detective story, totally tropes, right? And not that interesting. And then so I say unusual or new ones. You can get it, but then it only goes so far, and then it just starts repeating.
Right.
It's not very thick. It can't really write a term paper, because if you handed out a term paper, all of the students' essays are going to come back the same thing if they're using the same learning model, unless you're fun with the prompts. Like Peter has got some really cool stuff with prompts, I think. Anyway,
Interesting. Yeah. Okay. Excellent. Yeah, and I guess then it becomes sort of an art and writing the right prompts to get around the ChatGPT.
Well, and is it the output that's important, or is it the ability for us to think, rationally, or be able to understand the concept of evolution? And so how is that stuff coming in?
The crux.
How do I manipulate that in my mind? How do I learn a Fourier transform, or a 3D math of some sort? And then how do I express that or practice? And then how do I express it out? Agree that we're going to use AI to do that, but if Microsoft Word wrote the paper for you, we're going to become really bored because there's nothing for us humans to do, right?
Right. Yeah.
Excellent. Yeah.
Yeah.
DP.
Yeah, I just wanted to, the group is great, the discussion's great. I just wanted to contribute just a thought. The gentleman who was saying, stuff about it's too early to codify, things. Certainly that's the case, but I also think it's important that there's a response, and there's a thought from universities and learning, organizations on this is our point of view, because this stuff is moving at such an accelerated pace. It's important that there's also thoughts in real time of ways to answer it or adjust to it. If a student's doing their papers in ChatGPT or whatever, then maybe it's on the teacher's position that, well, I want to understand how you got there. What you're thinking behind it. Which of course is the important point of doing anything. But to wait those 18 months until Stable Diffusion or ChatGPT or whatever has landed on their platform, if that's even the case, means that that's the end all and be all. So if they're moving at the speed of light, I think the humans should now be stepping up and saying, okay, it's a new world, and they should also be contributing some thoughts so that there's not quite an equilibrium, but the same type of energy from both sides.
Yeah, it's fascinating too, because higher ed moves so slowly, but the fact that they're responding to this in what is effectively real time is actually pretty impressive. So great. Let's do Peter, and then we'll sort of wind it up unless anyone has anything burning. But Peter, let's have you wrap this up.
Thanks, Kyle. Nicole asked a great question. Do you judge the output, or do you judge the queries and where the queries go? And I obviously, we used to judge on output. Now it's like, what are you thinking? How did you drive the AI around to find the things that you were interested in? And a thing that occurs to me is that in the old education model, you got bottlenecked on what your textbook could tell you and what your teacher could guide you through, right? Now it's like ChatGPT and Wikipedia and the web know everything. So I would, if I were in charge of educational curriculum, I'd want to make sure that there's certain high points you check off. They're learning about social studies, they're learning about politics, they're learning about science, they're learning about health or whatever. But in the midst of that, what I'd really want is the kids to be semi-self-directed with the help of a teacher kind of watching over them and explore a lot of stuff, right? So when I sit down at ChatGPT, it's always a new adventure for me. It's like, today I'm learning Russian and Chinese and, and now I'm learning about how combines work and, seeds and stuff like that. And it's like, I can go through that faster than I can with anything else, right? Faster than I could pull a book off a shelf, faster than I can go through Google. So what I would want as a teacher, it's like, okay, today we're examining health stuff, find some topics, come back tomorrow, and we'll drill down into some themes. And each kid is, or maybe a little team of kids, should be exploring different parts of a big space and come back and tell me as a teacher stuff that I never knew about. And the thing that I'm judging them on, the thing that I'm trying to guide them towards, is better exploration of knowledge space, right? Not how well did you learn, how to do this calculus problem? That's like, that's like
That's done.
old days.
That ship has sailed.
Well, and
Yeah.
I'm reminded of during the introductions where it was mentioned that what can happen at the intersection when everything we know is out there with very, very curious minds, and what happens when we put those two things together, right? And so, like what you just said, Peter, about, I'm going to learn German today and I'm going to learn French, and I'm just curious. That to me seems like that's an opportunity to bring that into the classroom and get kids as well as junior creatives really excited about what can be done.
We're making an assumption here which isn't actually true, which is that ChatGPT is trained on truth and nothing but truth.
Yes, that's what I was.
ChatGPT is trained on truth plus enormous amounts of fiction plus enormous amounts of speculation. And some college student or high school student doing their research is getting a random subset of that stuff. And as far as I know, there's no way to tell what output from GPT was drawn from the truth part, because it doesn't know what.
It doesn't know. That'll come. Validation layers will come. But I think the point of getting teachers and students to engage in how they got there, what it came up with, if it gave bullshit, let's talk about what bullshit it gave and why it's bullshit, right? I think
it needs to be guided because it has the biases of the trainers.
Yeah.
So if you ask for beauty, right, is it going to give you a white one? If you ask for art, is it going to give you European art?
Yep.
So,
But it also gave me a whole bunch of extra extra educational degrees and clients that I never had. When I did it, I had it write my Wikipedia article.
Oh, nice.
It does not know how to do Wikipedia citations, just so you know. It can do Python, but it has no clue on how to do Wikipedia.
No, that's hilarious.
Yeah, no, it's actually pretty hilarious because I have the 4 keys to fun. Sometimes it gets it right, and sometimes it's like those vectors are like going way off. Some Euler angle is way off somewhere.
Yeah, exactly. Great. So Leah had 5 questions that we would go over. We got to 1. So again, I think this puts us back to why the Discord exists. Like, we can dig deep on these, and I want to. And what are your thoughts, Leah, on the conversation? I mean, fascinating
I think
stuff.
we hit a lot of the points without necessarily even bringing them up, and the discussion is what's important. And again, I would encourage the Discord. I was maybe thinking if we had time, I would touch on the news today that Getty Images is suing Stable Diffusion, because that is very interesting and it's going to be precedent setting. And there's very lively and interesting Discord going on, conversation going on about that in the Discord group. And I would just encourage you to join Discord and leave a comment. I also would like to say something about the Discord is if people could include their actual names in our channel, that would be great, because I don't know who people are lining up to who they are in our group.
That's good.
I think that's
on the Stable Diffusion one. There's also if someone can find it and put it in the chat, there's a website. I think it's called Stable Diffusion Frivolous, which takes the first lawsuit, not the Getty Images one. They were sued twice this week. They take the lawsuit that was presented, and then they have their counter argument to the lawsuit. It's a really interesting site. So if you want to learn about that, okay. Let's move on to Bill Frietag. He's going to take us through his project. Bill, are you ready to rock and roll?
I think so. Okay. I'll try. So,
all right. You don't even have to rock and roll. You can just talk.
Okay.
But yeah. Like I said, the project is called Alternate Reality Movies. Bill's the guy. So let's hear what you did.
Well, and I've seen a lot of spin-offs since I started doing it, so it's kind of crazy. I had to try to stay ahead of the curve here. So basically, it just started as something I was interested in. I wasn't going to really take it too terribly seriously. I was just killing some time. And I'm always thinking up, crazy ideas for films and stuff. And I'm pretty deep into like 80s culture for movies and games and things like that. I own and operate or co-own and operate a magazine called Toy Robot, where it's printed bi-monthly and we talk about Transformers and things like that. And so anyways, I started seeing all these AI images popping up, and I was like, well, I want to do that. I've got a background in film. I think I could probably do some of this stuff. So I had this idea to we never did get a live action Thundercats movie. I wonder if people would want to see what that would look like. And so I started using the program, and amazingly, I wasn't looking or having any understanding of prompts, any of this stuff. I was just kind of winging it. Based on my film background, I knew I wanted it to look like this director's kind of movie. I wanted it to have this kind of camera, these actors. Just went through like I was, pitching the movie to someone. And I'm going to go ahead and start sharing my screen here, taking us through some of these projects and whatnot. And I'll keep talking through there. Hopefully it'll work. Let's see here. Oh, everyone should see some big husky dude with wild hair.
Yep, we see it. Yep.
Yeah. So this concept that I came up with, it was literally me just having fun with the timeline of where this movie would come from. So I'm thinking, it's 1985. I decided on the John Milius, the director of Conan the Barbarian, for the look and feel. I chose actors that honestly now don't make any sense to me. Like if you told me that I used Patrick Swayze for this one here, I'd be like, okay, sure. So I went through and I started describing all these scenes of famous characters that were in the cartoon, and started describing the scenes. A lot of them were like basically almost profile type pictures. And I tell you what, when Midjourney knows how to fix hands, I mean, they're gonna be money. Because this guy, I mean, you might be a badass, but holding a sword with both your hands by the blade, I mean, that takes something here.
Don't you think we're gonna look back on this time, nostalgically? Like, remember when everyone had 7 fingers?
Oh yeah, yeah. No, I'd love it if I only got 7 figures. But I was just so amazed at like what the output was while I was working on these. I'm like, how is it getting this close to kind of what I'm picturing to be in the movie? Now, granted, take it with a grain of salt. It's not like these look exactly like the 1980s Thundercats, but it was enough that it got the point across, and it got me thinking, well, I wonder what else I could do. And so I started running with it, and I did, Transformers, G.I. Joe. I'm still doing it. I'm trying to go, let's see here. Just passed 7,000 followers on my Facebook page, which I've never had a ton of followers on anything I've done. I mean, I've only been doing this for a few weeks.
Wow.
The live action Inspector Gadget, that seemed to get some likes out of it. The Office mixed with Star Wars. That was getting some pretty good results. The Minions and A Clockwork Orange, live action Mario Brothers from the 70s. And there's even like the video game abilities too on this thing were insane. And again, I wasn't following anyone's advice. I was just using the terminology that I would for making 8 and 16-bit video games. Like, man, I wish that Hellraiser was a game on the Super Nintendo back in the day. And I go through describing scenes, and it was outputting some really cool stuff. Well, it definitely got noticed. So I was wondering where I could go from here, because again, it's just for fun. And Nicolas Cage is Superman. These are some of the outtakes, and boy, oh boy, those did not disappoint. So Castlevania Symphony of the Night, that got a bunch of people talking on there. Then when the anime Midjourney filter came in, or the plugin, or whatever you want to call it, the NIJI, I was able to get Studio Ghibli looking images, which I thought was really cool for movies that I wish had existed, like Legend of Zelda, Lego, Tron. So anyways, I'm doing this for fun. And then I started thinking about me as a filmmaker, how this could help. And one thing that I really hate putting together are my pitch decks and communicating ideas, because I'm not the best fine artist. Like, I can fake it till I make it, but I'm a lot better digitally to communicate my ideas. So I started playing around, and I'm like, if I wanted to put together a pitch deck and show somebody how a movie was going to look, this thing can crank out my images in like 10 minutes and I can go about my day. And sure enough, I started getting messages from people asking if I would do that for them. And I've gotten about 10 people that have gotten a hold of me over the last month to do exactly that. So one project that I'm going to share, this was a pitch for, they wanted to know what the look and the feel and the lighting and all that was going to look to their idea. And it's kind of a horror-based concept. And they were absolutely in love with these images and were able to use it to communicate their idea visually to the client. And they absolutely loved it. And so I've started to really work on these unique concepts where I'm not basing it on an already existing property. And it can be difficult because I'm not technically savvy. I'm really not. And Midjourney seems to have a lot of things in place that are hurdles for me because everyone wants to make a horror movie apparently. But, you know, violence, things like that are almost impossible to prompt in these in this program, at least. I haven't used any of the other programs, and I'm sure, I mean, there's a good reason for that too. I just have to figure out a workaround because I'm doing like this dark thriller type thing that's kind of like a David Fincher 7 type thing, and it's like literally every frame the guy wants is a violent scene. I'm like, I can't, I'm sorry, I can't show Jason Statham falling into the pavement with blood everywhere. So I'm like, okay, corn syrup, like trying to like get around it, and it's quite hilarious at times. But from there, I was thinking, okay, well, I've got my Facebook page. People are telling me that I should expand it over into Instagram, which I'd never really been using Instagram before, so now I've been populating that like crazy. YouTube, I'm just starting. I'm making like these basically elaborate slideshow type things so that people can watch them set to music and whatnot. But what I'm seeing moving forward are just for myself as an entrepreneur. I mean, there's plenty of marketing potential for this as well, because I can set up my own shop and sell posters for these images that I'm making because I own the rights to them through my membership. So like there's all these mock posters that I've been making because people have been wanting them from me. So I'm used to making and selling posters online for my magazine. So I can populate a site super quick, knowing at least a little bit of graphic design in Photoshop and being able to give it the proper text since it's all jumbly in Midjourney. And you can output some pretty crazy stuff. And I've gotten even more attention because the New York Times did a "This is not a real movie" article, and they highlighted another guy who does really incredible AI fake films, and he did a lot of the Stanley Kubrick, Tron, Jodorowsky type stuff, and they did a whole article on it. It was very neutral, which I was appreciative because I have gotten lots of hate messages about how evil AI is and how, you know, like I'm stealing people's jobs, which I don't know whose job I stole. I'm sorry if it was one of you. And I can sympathize with some scenarios, but in my scenario, I really don't think that that's the situation. So, and I'm just riding the wave, man. I don't claim to be a professional at this. I'm just learning as I go, and I know that you either adapt or you fall behind. Because when I was in college, you know, being really good at drawing vector graphics was one thing. And then over the years, as automated as it was getting, it's like, yeah, you can sit there and be pissed about it and try and use your old programs, or you can move forward and just change with the times. So, yeah.
Absolutely amazing. My request would be, as we'll open this up to questions now. My request to you would be, you know, as you're answering questions, just keep clicking through the images because they're really amazing. Like take us through them. Yeah, go ahead.
I was gonna say I will pull up my Facebook page and I will just click through some of the projects as I go because that'll probably be the easiest way.
Yeah,
No, we'll
perfect.
start with Mr. Bean as the doctor.
Yeah,
that was
there you go. Great. I think this is absolutely fascinating, and you know the fact that you kind of stumbled into it, then you went down a bit of a rabbit hole and it caught fire. It feels to me like this is the opportunity all of us are going to have, that as you start to take what you're passionate about, your point of view about things, and kind of aim that at AI, what it gives back are these remarkable things. So I'm curious, as a filmmaker, do you think, how quickly do you think you'll go beyond, stills and, slideshows and YouTube? When do you think it'll start effectively becoming a camera for you in your filmmaking?
It's really hard to say because, I mean, there's still a lot of the natural talent that you'll need to retain in order to create your finished vision. I don't believe that it'll ever fully take over. I'm only believing that it will assist. So honestly, in filmmaking right now, I'm just focused on the pre-production potential. I can't even really fathom, like if I'm able to type in prompts and actually create a movie from scratch, having it, fully digitized or animated or however you want to say it, that's mind-boggling to me. That'd be fantastic. But yeah, as of right now, I just think that the pre-production potential is very, very high and very cost attractive too once people start taking advantage of it.
Great. If anyone has any questions on the Goog, just raise your hand. And if anyone in here does, just feel free. Let's. Who's got what questions or comments? What do you think, Leah?
I'd love to hear a little bit about your process of working with Stable Diffusion, what tools you're using, how you're integrating different data sets into your work. I know some of that's probably very private and proprietary, but I'd be curious about your process. I find I love the control I have with Stable Diffusion, but I'm still somewhat baffled sometimes about the techier stuff involved in using it.
Well, I haven't used Stable Diffusion. I've only used Midjourney.
This is only Midjourney. Okay, I thought you.
Midjourney. I haven't even scratched the surface, even though people told me that I need to because I can train it, which would come in really handy with some of the images where I want a closer likeness to say this person or that.
Yeah.
But as far as my process, I'll brainstorm an idea, and then when I get into actually typing the idea, I'll make sure that I know the era. So if I know that I want it to be a 70s era, a location usually, whether it's in the UK or America, something like that, I'll get those details down. And then for the look, I'll start to think of a director that I really like the style of their movies. So it's like Kubrick, that it seems to do a lot better with well-known filmmakers. I've tried some more obscure ones and it doesn't really know what to do. And I'm pretty sure, correct me if I'm wrong here, whether their internet presence or where it's pulling the data from has enough to actually create that material. So once I know that, then I'll just adapt that into my prompts. So I'll say something around the lines of a production still or a screen capture of a scene from the live action He-Man movie made in 1986. And then I'll give a scene, He-Man's holding his power sword into the air. And then I'll go into some of my technical data on like what camera I think should be used, the focal length, the lenses that are being used, and then I'll just hit fire and see what happens.
How
excellent. Thank you. That was really helpful.
How many what's the ratio of duds to things that you're like, yeah, I'll keep that one?
I'd say I'll keep one out of about every 8 to 12.
Oh, that's pretty good hit rate. So you've got this pretty dialed in. That's great.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not doing a ton, although I will tell you when I'm having to do those specific things, like I said, for clients that are like, do this pitch deck for me. This current one that I'm on is killing me because of how violent it is and I can't do it. So I've gone through tons and tons of hilarious renders that aren't anywhere near what I need, even though I'm describing it to a T, and it's not getting anywhere close.
Yeah, I don't think Stable Diffusion has as many safety guardrails, so it might be worth exploring that.
Yeah, and I'm thinking that I'm probably going to be checking that out.
Yeah. Other questions, Roger?
Yeah, so you mentioned a couple of times how much faster the things you're doing happen here. In most or all these cases, are these things that you consider to be sort of just, overhead to your process or impediments to your creative process, and you're perfectly happy to have them go really fast? Or if there were a way for you to invest more time in the steps to get a better result, would you do that? Or are you just happy to be able to only spend 10 minutes rather than 4 hours?
If I could do this all day, I would. I would love to have more time doing it. Honestly, my days are so jam-packed with family and kids and work and projects and everything like that. This is my cool down. This is what I do in the evening to relax, is work on this stuff. If I could spend some real time on some of these things, I think that I could improve the output. I certainly believe that.
Could you go over your iteration process? So like in one of these where it was something wrong, and then you got to something where you liked it the way you did. Like,
just kind of what. So what do you want to know? Like kind of what I'm looking for, or how I tweak the design, or
in any one of these images, if you can like remember the specifics, like say, like it generated, you didn't like it.
Oh, sure.
What did you do next? And then, just the process of that and what you were thinking.
Well, the nice thing with the update with Midjourney was, if you get to an image that you know is going in the right direction, you can create variations on that image and adjust the description. So like this one, for example, Inspector Gadget flying around on a jetpack or an air bike. It got really close for me, but it wasn't quite there. So I was able to click on them to make variations, and I massage the text a little bit, telling the jetpack either to be smaller or bigger. And if I had a good example to like show you how I went through that, I could actually show you a real world look at that. This is some stuff that I haven't even posted yet that I was doing for people. You have no idea how hard it was to get the number 7,000 to show up. That didn't make it. Like, what
That's pretty impressive. That's really hard. Yeah.
Okay. I think this is a pretty good example.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So here we go. Here's that the thing where I'm like trying to get really close. Jason Statham is lying on the cement covered in red paint. You can't use blood. This was what I ended up keeping of Edward Norton looking over the railing that he had just fallen over.
Oh, wow.
And then Jason Statham falling off the building, which that must put him in danger or something, because it would not render that at all.
Wow.
But luckily this one I didn't need to do a lot of variations. But if I scroll up here for a while, I mean, you're going to see Jason Statham doing all sorts of shit, except the one thing I want him to do, which is falling over a railing. So yeah, how do I get there? It's trial and error, click redo, massage the text until I get what I want, and then I just move on.
Are you keeping any prompt? Are you keeping any kind of a prompt library, or you are?
Yep, I got all sorts of go-to prompts. I also have a full list of prompts for different applications. So whether you want a vector art or logo, or for photography, for film, for websites. I mean, I was blown away that you can create mock websites on this. I was starting to pitch that to an ad director here in town. Like, hey, let's say so-and-so wants a website for buying necklaces or buying jewelry online. How long would it take your designer to come up with a concept? And he gives me the hours. And it's like, while he was giving me his response, I typed it in and sent it to him. So I was like, there might, be, there might be some value in this.
Wow. Amazing. Other questions?
I am so happy that you're showing us this process. It's great. Thank you. It's really
Oh,
neat
yeah.
to see. Yeah.
Very awesome. Yes.
I'm looking at some of the prompts that I have saved. So I've got prompts saved for portraits, photos, paintings, cartoons, T-shirts, ink drawings, vector drawings for pets, products, food, rooms, characters, landscapes, surrealistic art, abstract art, logos, macro photography, futuristic, websites, buildings, fabric, emblems, and microscopic, infographic. I mean, I've been saving all sorts of things. Sorry, excuse me. Is there any other questions?
They're wonderful. Thank you for sharing them with us, William.
Yeah.
Yeah, Bill, this is just amazing.
Thank you so much. Yeah.
Thanks for
so
thanks for
awesome.
doing it. Thanks for responding to my DM. I've reached out to a number of people who have cool stuff. You responded back, and we're willing to do this. So really appreciate you showing it and being so generous with what you showed and what you talked about. You know, what really blows me away about what you're doing is it's such a clear extension of who you are, what you're passionate about, you know, that you're doing this kind of in your free time. It actually makes sense, right? That you're just taking that sort of passion place, and that's then leading to, oh, maybe I could do this, you know, for other people. And then that's resonating, and right. But it's all coming from this very centered place of who you are and what you're interested in. And then this superpower just becomes this dramatic amplifier of that, which is, and it's just amazing. So kudos to the work, and thank you for sharing.
You're very, very welcome.
Great. All right. Official golf claps now. Thank you, Bill. Very nice. Okay, Mr. Nack, are you ready to make the big transition? I don't know how you're going to follow that up, but are you ready to go?
Yeah. Hey, everybody. I don't either, so I guess we'll find out. Can you hear me okay?
Great. Yeah. So this is John Nack. You've probably seen him before if you've been here from some of the early meetings. John works for Adobe on their AI team. John is also, you were at Adobe for a lot of years on the Photoshop team, correct? And then took a little jaunt over to the Goog. You want to just give us a little background on who you are, and then share all of the dirty secrets we need to know.
Yeah, sure. Well, I can't believe Kyle hired me, which I'm still very grateful for. There's a lot of sort of unwarranted successes I've had. Basically, I was just an arts and letters guy. I taught myself Photoshop and other tools in college. Happily, it was the mid to late 90s. A lot of us go back to that period, I think. And so if you could fog a mirror, it was like, cool, we need some bodies to like make websites. So that really was yeah, it was just all like hand coded HTML, and it was, you know, I took a semester off where I worked for a startup, but really, you know, had no formal training in design to speak of. I was just willing to work for, you know, beer money effectively, but it was great because that's how I learned the craft and got to be around amazing people. And in the course of that, once I found my footing, I would get visits from people from Adobe and Macromedia, different companies. And I would very politely but very firmly rant at them and say, do you guys not use these products at all? I mean, because if you did, you know, I mean, what makes sense on paper, you know, if you've never used it in anger, so to speak, it really falls apart. And so at some point, pretty quickly, I realized, gosh, I'm way more interested in this form of design, that is crafting a product based on what people need as opposed to necessarily what they say they want, which are sometimes not the same. And so I got hired to work on a sort of After Effects for the web product, which actually may come full circle for me if I get around to telling it. Basically, I'm possibly in a transition among jobs, so I might get back to my roots pretty soon here, but that's unpredicted. Anyway, yeah, as Kyle said, you know, I spent a couple of years doing web animation tools. I ended up switching to Photoshop. I spent about 10 years doing that. And hopefully you guys will just sort of interject as we go. I've tried to give myself some amount of structure in what I'll show, but honestly, it's going to be a lot of look at this, look at this, look at this. What do you think? And so please feel free to interject. I think all of Adobe, is having really interesting conversations, wrestling with a lot of the same questions I hear folks discussing here and on the Discord. A lot of things around ethics and credit, around empowering people without devaluing them. There's a quote, actually, I'll share my screen here in a second, that keeps coming to mind, but it's a lot like they say in the movie The Incredibles, where it's like, if everyone is super, then no one is. And it's this interesting thing we're all going to have to negotiate. I think Kyle touched on it at the start, where if effectively anybody can produce an unlimited volume of pretty aesthetically refined, maybe compelling work, what makes something special, or what makes something valuable, or what makes it really an expression of you, or a point of view, as opposed to just the latent space in some computer's brain. So anyway, that's a roundabout way of saying that I would love to hear what folks here have to say. I think this will just be a long, interesting, ongoing conversation, by no means limited to tonight. So I thought maybe I could show you some of the things that I've been thinking about, working on. Like I say, please interject. I'll try to leave time for folks, because I would love to have some discussion. I'm kind of verbose, as you're probably already getting, so do feel free to interject. Kyle knows this from having managed me. I haven't changed. So anyways, let me see if I can make screen sharing work.
Yeah, exactly.
Funny, I used to work for the team that does the background segmentation in Google Meet, and you would think I could therefore remember where the screen sharing button is, but I don't.
Bottom center, just left of the hang up button. Don't click the red button. Or
don't hang up. There it is. Present now. Okay, cool. All right, I want to present my entire screen. Hopefully it'll give me a choice. Okay, cool. All right, are you guys seeing?
Indeed.
A kid with a camera? Okay,
Yes.
Yep.
Great. So, all right, cool. So we'll get back here in a minute. But like I say, this will be very slapdash, but hopefully inspiring, interesting. Just, I love to share the things that I find super cool. So, yeah, after I spent all these years, 14 years at Adobe, I ended up going over to Google 9 years ago, which is crazy. And the idea was, what if you could get computers to see like humans? What would they do on your behalf, right? So in the same way, your Google Assistant, which is probably going to go off in the background when its ears are burning, but it can tell you, it's like, oh, hey, Kyle, you should probably leave for the airport because your flight's at 7 and traffic's kind of bad. You're like, hey, thanks, robot. That's amazing. Great, cool. In the same way, it ought to be able to observe, like, oh, you just took a trip to Napa, or it's your anniversary on Sunday, or you have a child and they've had a whole summer of interesting moments. What are the things that you would want your ideal creative assistant to do for you if you had one that just lived in your pocket? So that's really what drew me there. I got to work with a bunch of the folks who are now making these amazing models like Imagine and things. And it was an interesting experience. I ended up coming back to Adobe because they were getting into what they were calling AI first creativity. And so that's an interesting question we can maybe talk about. Like, there's absolutely a place for, I think, sort of augmenting traditional tools like Photoshop, and I'll show you some of that in a second. But there's also maybe a chance to think about, like, if you really had the chance to do this from scratch, and in the same way, Google would aspire to understand the world and understand your life and what you care about. What if you could just like comprehensively understand a scene, right? And you could actually deduce depth, and these are object boundaries, and this is someone's expression, and here's the light sources, right? All these things that maybe as a human you can intuit, but are hard to express mathematically. If you actually had those signals, maybe you could really build very, very different kinds of creative experiences. I don't think we've cracked that code by any stretch. Nothing frankly, I'm going to show you, I think rises to that level, but I think things are going in an interesting direction. So we can talk about that. Anyway, one of the things that inspired a bunch of people actually before I came back, but then that's really what got the ball rolling, was some work at NVIDIA. Maybe you've seen this demo before, but let me just let this play. And I'll try to gather up some links to send around so you don't have to write everything down. But let me just let this go. Oh gosh, sorry, the frame rate really doesn't do it justice, I think, coming over Meet, because it's running at like 30 FPS or 60 FPS, but these very gorgeous, morphing animations. And what's happening here, this was all maybe 2 years before this sort of last year's Cambrian explosion in diffusion models. So this is using GANs, and it's so funny to have an arts and letters guy who would much rather talk about the Peloponnesian War attempt to articulate the pros and cons of GANs versus diffusion versus transformers and token models. I'm just like speaking phonetically here, but here's my dumb guy understanding. GANs are basically sort of domain optimized networks. So here you have one that's optimized around faces. And again, I'll send a link because you really should see this thing running at full speed. That's a lot of the magic. And so it has a notion of a human face, and it also now has a notion of these artistic styles. It's funny because this almost sounds rudimentary to describe this now, because the group's like, oh, of course, we've all been looking at, DALL-E, diffusion, or Midjourney and everything for months. But when this came out, it was, totally unheard of. Just this week, I was asking friends at OpenAI and Stability and Google, how have you guys come up with your disallow lists? And one of the things we were doing was actually looking at, there's a Reddit unstable diffusion. And it's basically, people have taken this open source model and they're, then just taking the safeties off of it. And, it doesn't take a lot of imagination to guess the kind of things people are going to type in, and sure enough, those things appear. And so just by scraping, with a script for prompts that people use there, you can find a lot of those terms pretty readily. But I don't know that the industry has like best practices. Certainly, I haven't seen anything published. Google put out a paper on like, well, here's how we, here's how we measure the user-rated quality of different prompts in Imagine versus DALL-E, let's say. But I haven't seen any, similar literature on like, how does one decide what to allow and disallow? So just a lot of emerging interesting stuff.
I find Adobe must be grappling with some sort of what we'll call meta ethical issues, such as if we don't make some set of decisions and put something out there that implements our vision of ethics, somebody else might get ahead of us with something much more horrible and take over the space, and we lose control entirely.
Totally, and that's exactly what's happening. I mean, I think I think net grateful that Stability.ai exists. I think them open sourcing things is amazing, and it's given rise to people being able to productize stuff like the Dream Booth paper, and that in turn has beget personalized avatars, and it's like incredible power. But yeah, the genie's out of the bottle for sure, and all of this hemming and hawing we were doing about, well, gosh, do you think we should let you type in ethnicities, and should we type it, should we respond if you have a term around attractiveness, things like that? It's just like, man, that horse has left the barn and it is halfway around the world at this point. And we were just worried about, should we even let you do this with a face? It's now we're getting to these questions of like trying to use red syrup to hack around blood not being permitted. And again, these are interesting questions, right? Like, should the toolmaker get to decide, and what the limits of good taste or responsibility are? I think we have to try, but certainly not everybody's going to try. And one of the first ways Stability got attention and differentiated itself from DALL-E was being more permissive. And so I hope it's not a race to the bottom per se, but I think it is, generally kind of a race towards maybe more permissivity. And just more degrees of creative freedom, and that's going to cut both ways.
I mean, personally, I know that recently there was a student that created some kind of program to detect whether or not things had been created with artificial intelligence and by ChatGPT. So I wonder if instead of creating some sort of permissions list, you could create a tool or some kind of way to detect if an image has been altered or AI generated, and that way, instead of having a more restrictive list of words and terms.
there's actually quite a bit of research on automatic detection of, I mean, this spun off of all of the deep fake stuff. There's quite a bit of academic research on automatic detection of generated images. The problem is it's a cat and mouse game. And it's ironic because if you look at the basic architecture of GAN, that the fact that GAN works proves that you can't solve this problem, right? Because the fundamental mechanism of GAN is you move, I move, you move, I move. Every time you try to get better, I try to get better still. And you can apply any detection technique is just the other side of the GAN mechanism. And so someone's going to be trying to beat it.
Yep. Yeah, that's a great point. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
I wanted to just jump in and say, I think there's a lot of discussion happening around, was this made with AI? Wasn't it made with AI? What's real? What's not? And it's very, very familiar to digital photography early on. And I wonder, like, working at Adobe, where is that line and how much, I mean, I know you're presenting it to us this way tonight, but how much does that hold back what progress could be because of that conversation?
Yeah, honestly, I mean, there are things that I felt good about that we could ship, but particularly, frankly, I mean, the deep fakes, just that term touches a nerve, right? Like nobody at Adobe wants to see a headline that says Adobe deep fakes at anything, like literally anything. It could be positive, it could be pro-privacy, it could, especially, this was right around the time of the invasion of Ukraine as well. And all of a sudden there's this flood of synthetic media, both from both sides, right? Trying to put words in people's mouths. And again, it's not to say, the world's waiting on us. They certainly aren't. But do we want to be seen as moving that direction? And frankly, this too gets to these questions around compensation of artists. How are things trained? Adobe has Behance, right? To which a lot of people have trusted their life's work and portfolios. Should we push for like a no robots tag, right? The equivalent thereof, like a no AI tag. And if so, which I think we should, in the sense that people should have control over whether their art is included in these corpora of training data. But should that then be enabled by default? Should it be something you opt into versus opt out of? Those are great questions. A lot of people are debating that with things like DeviantArt. And honestly, it's a case where being a huge ponderous company is in some ways helpful because, we haven't run right out and stepped on some of those third rails that other people have. For me as a tool maker, I just want to get good things into people's hands as quickly as possible. And in fact, jumping around on that front, this guy, Christian Cantrell, here's the irony. He actually had to quit. What he did is he wrote this great little plugin for Photoshop. Lots of good concerns about whether we should or shouldn't ship it. He then quit, not over that, right? He'd been here 20 years and he just wanted to go like write fiction and so forth. But he then went and released it on his own. In fact, so I'll post a link to his site. And if I tab over to Photoshop here, hopefully you can see it. I'm not sure how big it comes through, but essentially it's a really simple panel. You plop it into Photoshop. Probably any recent version supports it. You can paste in your API key from Stable Diffusion or DALL-E, and then you can use either system to I don't have my DALL-E key in there, but basically do the same things you would do through the website. What's nice here is the results come out as Photoshop layers, and you can use masks and selections to guide the in-painting. Now, it's not as nice and refined as one would ultimately like, and there's I think a good case for features like this just being part of Photoshop once we figure out some of these thorny questions around ethics and compensation and so forth. But yeah, you can go download this today and use it. And as you might see on his website, he's got some nice little tutorials. In fact, earlier today, it's actually on my blog, which I will shamelessly promote. But yeah, he put in a couple features that support, hopefully it'll load, presets for using Stable Diffusion. I think basically you just like make a little CSV file, a little spreadsheet, if you have a bunch of prompts or base ingredients that you like to use. So you can now invoke, because I don't think he populated it, but you can just suck yours in. And then he also has put in some stuff around canvas extension, i.e. outpainting. So just kind of shifting a layer over here and then, putting in a prompt, hitting dream, you get a bunch of results. You can click them, you can see it's populating the layer stack, and then you can turn them on and off.
Amazing.
And then mess around with that. So the little, I don't know, I'm salty. It's been impressed upon me. I'm trying to be less salty. I always want us to move faster. The consolation prize for me is back in the day, I really pushed to make Photoshop extensible via panels. So it's a godsend that there's a great developer community who can do things like this, while the big company figures out what it wants to do. So yeah, definitely check that out. And again, like I said, please interject here. I'm going to keep talking. It's my way. Go ahead.
I have a question, John, on that with the developer community, because I think, ChatGPT has kind of forced Google's hand. I think Stability open sourcing this, the developer community is pouncing on every time there's an update to a stable diffusion model. The developer community pounces on it, and things are pushed like that. I'm curious. Yep. Do you think that sort of rabidness of the developer community? Do you think it's going to be a forcing function for Adobe to release things faster, maybe before you would have otherwise release things you might not have released at all?
I don't know. I don't think so. And again, that's for better or worse or both. I think if anything, it might kind of be a safety valve in the sense that, if people have an immediate need, these tools exist. And, kind of like you were doing, just like, oh, here, I'm going to learn automatic 1111 and some like weird, Hugging Face or Google Colab. And like, these, it's like, this is probably the last thing you want to do, except that it's like gratifying when you finally beat it. But yeah, people are willing to like hack through the underbrush and figure out like, is there some value here? I think the cool part is maybe it opens the door for Adobe to be more deliberate and thoughtful about training. One corpus of information that's available to Adobe is Adobe stock, and everybody who has attributed to that, is obviously signed up to, have their work used commercially. And so, maybe there's ways to train in a more restrictive way, where it's not just sort of like without consent, people have had their stuff sucked in. Again, I don't want to, say too much or like speak on anybody's behalf, but that's at least a thing to consider. And we don't have to be first to market.
In a different domain, but a very similar issue. My experience with tools that have extension capability is more like what you're saying here, and this is the opposite of what you were saying, which is that it gives the tool an excuse not to extend itself, because you can always say, they can do it in an extension. And I've seen that happen. I've seen that once there was a hack together thing that some application engineer built that solved a problem, that took the pressure off doing a real solution in the product. Said, you don't need it, right? We got the thing that's good enough. So and whether that's a good thing or a bad thing is quite debatable, but
it's true. It's 100% true. I mean, look, I'll pointing back to the Nack administration of Photoshop. I mean, there's a bunch of stuff in here, like under scripts, that should that be a legit Photoshop feature? Of course. Did I have enough engineers to do it? No. And then but if you could get a developer or somebody on the team to make something, it was a way that's like, oh, now I can export layers as files, or I can import layers and turn them into animation frames or things like that. And it's like, it's a little bit of a middle ground, but yeah, it's at least it's not all or nothing. By the way, I was pulling up these sort of like weird renderings. This is me, by the way, just to show these I made using Christian's plugin. And one of the cool things, of course, you can do is image to image transformations, just generally with like stable diffusion. And so I don't know quite what the alchemy is to get the right balance between, prompt and image, but I just tried. Once I found a balance that seemed good, I just tried different artist names. So here I tried Norman Rockwell. Here, I guess I was doing, who's this? Magritte, probably. This one, I've got like, Picasso in there.
Nice.
and again, nothing specific to Photoshop. It was just convenient that I could then render out the layers and have them come in. On the stylization front, it's interesting. This is to me a really a fun area to play, but I was banned by my wife immediately from using her likeness, and for reasons you'll see. I won't show you hers, but like I thought it was a cute one, and she's like, "You made me into like a dime store drag queen Rachel Maddow with a 5 o'clock shadow." And I was like, okay, so like not the look you were going for. And you know, I'm playing too with Midjourney actually and stylization. So as you may have discovered, you know, you could just do, you know, /imagine URL and then some prompt, and it'll try to mix together that image. In fact, you can do multiple URLs and it'll try to, you know, merge multiple images. So this is completely my first experiment naively was just an old picture of me and a Picasso painting. And that's thankfully not what I look like, I hope. Interesting. There's
exactly how I remember you.
Yeah, right. So, yeah, right. I was retaining a lot of water. So there's some DNA in there. This to me was more successful, although again, it's knowing my own face, I know it's not me, but these do look like they could be my cousins. And all I did was, I think, upload that same photo, and I said in the style of Wes Anderson, and it gave me this 4-up. Here's another one, 4-up. So the thing that kind of tends to get me banned, I uploaded a picture of our friend, and it made these renderings of her, and you know, not probably what she would go for. And again, I don't know why these different characteristics come in. Like maybe there are more men or guys with facial hair in Wes Anderson movies. Probably if you looked at the histogram of like who's depicted, that could well be true. And so, you know, it puts some of those characteristics on her. I found getting the alchemy right for identity preservation and a lot of these sort of like culturally sensitive things around like skin tone and eye shape and hairstyle or hair texture, they're really hard. It really takes a lot of thoughtful work. There's an app that became really popular last year called Voila. Actually, the first one, Tunify. These are sort of cherry picked results, and again, you know, well, some of these look better than others, but you know, I thought these are pretty compelling. But then, if you put yourself or your loved ones in them, that's a much more useful thing. I saw earlier this week, actually, they just came out with pet stylization. So you can go on the App Store on iOS, probably also on Android, and now you can make a pet avatar. So unlike the Dream Booth approach, where you have to upload multiple images and then wait a while because it has to like learn your likeness from sort of different angles, this just takes a single image. I was just screwing around. I had, you know, my dog unknowingly modeling yesterday. He was just chilling on the bench. And just to see what would happen, I put him in there, and you could get these different treatments, right? So this is sort of like this fluffy sheep look. Not sure if that's like a luck dragon from Neverending Story or what's going on. Kind of cool. It's another one, you know, it's done sort of like Snuggle, the fabric softener bear treatment. Maybe another one on him. And here, I think they're using GANs, if I'm not mistaken. Certainly, they were doing this like 18 months ago. I think what's hard for a company like Adobe with these, it's the popularity tends to be very brief, and it's not just that specifically, but for curiosity's sake, I went into Google Trends. You might remember like 5 years ago, FaceApp blew up just out of nowhere, and it was because it had a network for doing like age progression, right? So it's like LeBron James is suddenly posting himself as an old man, and it was like this little viral thing. But you can see the duration of that. Similarly, new profile pic can produce some really beautiful results. That too is really short. Similarly, Voila. The one, of course, that's blown up in the last 6 or 8 weeks was Lensa, right? So Lensa just provided a really simple interface for normal people to do Dream Booth type modifications. I don't have a screenshot handy, but I went on App Annie and looked at their revenue, and it's exactly what you'd expect. It's like a huge spike, and then it goes to nothing, or it goes, you know, basically back to where it was. So it's this very sort of hits-driven business. I think one of the things we have to figure out, and this is where getting your input would be really helpful, is like, what are the things that are like have genuine lasting value? And so that's what we've been exploring. If I go to my Photoshop folder, you know, and this is not Photoshop specific, but like, this was me and DALL-E very early on, you know, just taking my wife and our friend. And she didn't ban me specifically on this because it is at least preserving the face and it's just doing in-painting around it. But this is just, you know, trying to make like Dia de los Muertos imagery. And I think I typed in like Salvador Dali. Another one was Russell, who you saw earlier. And the only thing that's original to this is his face. Everything else was just in painting conditioned on the face. And I said like a serious man, Viking movie poster. You get, of course, this like weird mescaline, you know, hallucinated type. I'll be sad when that goes away. It's kind of like the finger thing. It'll be like, oh, the way we were 2022, you know. So to me, it's like reading Cyrillic. It's kind of fun to try to do it. And actually, somebody did a mashup between Patagonia and IKEA, and they got a bunch of these like crazy looking sentences.
Yeah,
Wasn't that? Yeah, aren't those just like the names of IKEA furniture already? So there's a lot of possibilities. I think, you know, what I've heard pretty clearly from Photoshop users is they're less interested in, at least in Adobe tools, making an entire scene from scratch, at least for that audience. And they're more like, help me do specific things, right? Like help me, you know, do content aware fill, but on steroids, or, you know, synthesize something from scratch. You know, that would just be like a very sort of like a scalpel as opposed to like a big thing. I was trying to do the silly thing with like a picture of my cousin the other day. I just wanted to like, you know, make him glow. And it's funny, like I was just going through the Photoshop menu. It's like, do we have glow? It's like, well, we have like layer edges, but like there's nothing in there which like holistically could take this person and make him look like he was on a backlit Trinitron, right? You have to kind of like build it up with all of these little tools. I think maybe something like that, where you can kind of abstract away a lot of that complexity and have it in the model, to me could be really interesting. And of course, being able to do things over time is super interesting. I'll post the link, but yeah, there's this a huge corpus of stuff that I just put in the like AI ML channel on my blog. Again, sorry, the frame rate here super sucks over Meet, but hopefully what you can see is this is just a video for the Chainsmokers that they came out with, and somebody used Stable Diffusion and you know, processed it frame by frame. It's, to me, pretty impressive because they're getting a lot of what you call temporal coherence, i.e. stuff isn't just like completely random image to image, but there's actually some continuity. That's one of the emerging areas of research, which is hard to get right. But you can imagine if, you know, as things progress, being able to have plugins for tools like After Effects or Premiere, which can do this. In fact, one of the other cool things that's emerging is depth to image. So you don't have to use just the 2D source, but you can actually take, you know, like a 3D primitive and do some cool stuff there. In fact, again, jumping around, I wanted to show this tool, Canvas, which you may have seen. It's a few years old, from NVIDIA. And I think it was even called Canvas initially.
John, we've got about 5 minutes before we need to wrap up the meeting.
All right, thanks. See, I told you I'd fly right off the end of the thing. All right, so I'll post some links. Lots of stuff to check out. I wanted to mention though, what's interesting here. This is using GANs, and they're they got Bob Ross here with his happy trees. And the idea was you could, you know, do these very simplistic sort of gestural cues to the system to hallucinate content. I think the shortcoming, or what has prevented this from getting to be very mainstream, well, one, most people can't paint, period. Although this could maybe help, but they're still kind of uncertain. But two, just the quality you would get out of the GAN was like kind of borderline, right? But you can imagine using not just you know, these paint strokes plus GANs, but you could use paint strokes plus diffusion, or you could use potentially something like 2D and 3D presets, right? So you could have a couch. This filmmaker Karen Cheng did an interesting thing the other day where she took dollhouse furniture and just placed it, and then used that to hallucinate what appeared to be like 3D models, and then, you know, decorated a room with just very simple like Lincoln logs, effectively. So a lot of possibilities there. To me, this is the stuff I would love to talk with folks further, and not so much monologue, but like to understand, you know, what might a groundbreaking experience look like, right? I mean, the incremental extension of Photoshop, fantastic. You can imagine that extending to Illustrator and like learning to, you know, hallucinate vectors. Like there's a lot of very sort of like, you know, 1 foot away stuff. But the things which are more groundbreaking, I think, will be unlocked by, you know, combining these like clean sheet implementations where, you know, if things really can run 100 times faster, 200 times faster, you know, and if they become more predictable in their output, I think then it's really going to get even more interesting. I hope it makes this stuff look quaint, in the same way that, you know, Midjourney makes, you know, DALL-E 2 look quaint, right? And that's like, oh my God, that's so 9 months ago. It's laughable. All right, I should probably then wrap up. Anything else people want to touch on?
Let's wrap it up. First, thank you. I mean, anything you want to say? Any sort of words of wisdom for us as we head off into the AI wilderness from what you're seeing, John?
No, I just feel super lucky to be here with you. I think we all do. And by the way, I'm gratuitously throwing one more thing, which is NERF. It's the 3rd anniversary of NERF, which is neural radiance fields.
Yep.
Yeah, that's a whole other can of worms. This is literally just a guy walked around with a cell phone in Italy, you know, and then is able to turn it into this like 3D hallucination. No, I'm grateful to you, Kyle, and folks who've set up this forum because, like I say, the reason I got into this racket was just being a pissed off customer, and I wanted to like make some smarter people make better tools. So I'd love to keep that conversation going and learn, you know, what you're interested in, what you're seeing. You know, what you want from Adobe, what makes you mad. That's all good intel.
Great. And what I'll say there is, you know, let's continue this conversation on the Discord. If you haven't joined the Discord, join it. John's in there. I've seen him in there. I've made fun of him in there, I think.
Sure.
I think this was absolutely fascinating, and I think very much warranted a lovely little golf clap.
Yeah, thank you so much. This was illuminating and very, very inspiring. I often think about how to do the ad with like the and with photography and AI, right? Not the, oh, photography's over here and AI's over here. And it was really cool to see how you're integrating it. Yeah, thank you.
Incredibly amazing. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you guys. And hi, Susan. And hi, Scott. Like it's fun to see a lot of people from a past life.
Yeah, great. Yeah, this was awesome. I don't know. What do you think, Leah? This is a good meeting.
I could listen. I could do this for another hour.
Yeah, I know.
Thank you, and I will talk to you at any time about what photographers need and want in Photoshop and Lightroom and anytime.
Cool.
Lots of
it's more
opinions
credible when if I say it, it's like, well, we pay you, therefore we can ignore you. But if I'm saying, well, you know, Leah says, and then it counts.
Leah photographer says.
That's right.
Yep.
Great.
Thank you.
We've got we didn't get to, we'll have to do this on Discord. We didn't get to the challenge of the week. I don't know if Allie's here. Allie, are you here? I don't think Allie's here. So last meeting we did a challenge for people to do something for 2023. So next meeting we'll do it at the beginning of the meeting. We'll show you which images were selected from that, and then we'll do a new challenge for the following week. What are your thoughts, Leah? Want to wrap it up?
I am so inspired from tonight's night. Thank you. Please everyone hop in the Discord. We can keep this going for weeks and weeks. Thank you. Thanks for being here.
Great. Yeah, thanks everybody. Thanks everybody online. I know on the East Coast it's late. I appreciate you being here, and everyone here. It's probably snowing out, so drive safe. All right.
Okay. Thanks
Bye,
everyone.
everybody.
We'll see you in 2 weeks.
Bye.
Bye.
Yeah, if you have a pesky problem with spare time, the Discord will pretty much solve that one for you.